And welcome to SimBoxx in 2024. I'd just like to take this opportunity to wish all our followers, subscribers, a very happy and prosperous 2024. Today, I'm joined by Scottish heavyweight Nick Campbell. He's a good friend of the channel here at SimBoxx. Delighted to have him on as our first guest of the new year. Nick, happy new year. Hope it's going to be a good one for you. And how's things?
Look, happy new year. Thanks for having me as always. It's a pleasure to speak to you, mate. And yeah, all the best to everybody out there for 2024.
Absolutely. So, Nick, first off, as a heavyweight, we know you don't have to really make weight as such, like some of the lighter divisions. So, how do you deal with Christmas? Obviously, there's a temptation there to let yourself go over the holidays and maybe eat a bit too much or eat the wrong kind of foods. Maybe I've seen that you was out training. So, what's the mindset of a heavyweight boxer over Christmas and New Year?
Listen, I don't even think it's so much a heavyweight boxer, but I love training. I don't feel right if I don't get to train. So it's easy for me to keep on the kind of straight and narrow over this period. Listen, I like to have, a few pieces of cake and a few Yorkshire puddings like everybody else. But I do train pretty hard. I try and, lead a pretty healthy lifestyle. So it's not much of an issue for me. And thankfully, like you say, I don't need to make weight. So I've never really got that monkey on my back when I'm like, oh, what if I do this? What if I do that? I just try and train hard and live clean. So, not too much of an issue. But I think, I'm going to hopefully have a busy 2024. So, that was, part of the reason for staying on the straight and narrow, getting a good training session in over or getting good training sessions in over the Christmas period and New Year period. So, I'm fit and ready to hit the ground running in January.
Absolutely. So, in today's interview, I want to look at the Day of Reckoning, the massive card out in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. But firstly, I want to touch on Yoka. And to be fair, Nick, I think it'd be quite honest to say it was a frustrating year in 2023 for yourself. You was only out the once. You picked up the 6-round points victory over Jake Darnell, and then towards the back end of the year, you had two fights fall through. So I'm sure that it was cause of much frustration for yourself.
Yeah, listen, I was up. Listen, I should have had 3 fights this year. Had 2 fall out on the day of the fight. Both fights that I'd sold tickets for, prepared hard for, spent money on my camp and stuff like that for them to, the rug to be pulled out from underneath me on the day of the fight. So frustrating, but listen, that's boxing. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger and all that. So I think when it comes to dealing with, fight week and things not going your way, I'm pretty prepared for anything in the future. But listen, I'm in a good place right now. I've got a great team working with me. I'm really lucky and blessed to be in the position I'm in just now. So I'm just excited for 2024. Hopefully going to get a fight organised in the next couple of weeks for the first quarter of this year. And I'm looking to get out as often and as much as I possibly can. Ideally 4 times this year. I've got a good little thing going with a fella called Scott Murray in the Excelsior Sporting Club, who wants to, get me on his shows as much as possible. And then, listen, I'm training with Andy Lee now, training, my stablemate Joe Parker. So I'm in one of the best environments in the world when it comes to training. So, just looking to take my opportunities, get busy, get active, and get a bit of momentum going and take the right opportunity when it comes along.
Absolutely. Now, in particular, that it was the second fight that fell through that caught my attention and the attention of a few boxing fans with Jose Stewart. I thought that was a good fight for you, a good fight for him as well. It was a real crossroads fight on the back of the Steve Robinson defeat. Is that a fight that you could potentially revisit and look to get back on track, or is the bridges burnt there and it's not really something you'd look back on?
I don't really want to ever say. I never try and burn any bridges. Do you know what I mean? Listen, I don't actually fully really know what went on with Jose and why he was unable to get his medicals done in time. I'm not really here to speculate. I talk bad of anybody, but for me, maybe the the ship's sailed on that one. Who knows in the future what can happen, but for the moment, it's not really something I'm looking at. I need somebody reliable who's going to turn up and actually wants to fight. Like you say, I think it was a great fight for both of us. I think it was, he's a big lump of a man. It would have been a good fight for us. We could have both really kicked on. Whoever won that, I would have backed myself big time to, get the job done. So, yeah, I don't know. But listen, that's life, innit? You move on to the next one. Wish the big man the best. Hope he gets himself sorted out. But I'm just focused on me. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, it's a great mindset to have. Just touching there on the. You said you linked up now with Andy Lee's a trainer. You take us through the idea of moving from. I know you was with Billy Nelson for a little while, and now linking up with Andy Lee. I know you've done a lot of sparring in with Joe Parker and around Tyson Fury's camp. So, where was the decision made to make that a full-time move to work with Andy Lee?
No, listen. I obviously had been involved with Andy. God, it was well over a year ago now. Back in 2021, I went to spar Sonny Bill Williams, and Andy was coaching him at the time. So that was when I initially first met Andy. And then from that, he asked me to come in and be sparring partner for Joe, for a little bit of his camp for Joyce. And me and Joe got on really well. He's now, I regard him as a really good close friend of mine. So it was just off the back of that, built a bit of a relationship up with Andy and Joe. And then got invited to another camp in Ireland, another camp in Morecambe. And it just kind of grew naturally, if you know what I mean. Billy's got a pretty busy stable. He's got Martin. And I just had to do what was best for me, to be honest with you. And that was part of the reason, kind of, Billy felt maybe he couldn't really offer me anything more than what he had. And I had the opportunity to go and train full-time with Andy and Joe. And I just thought, you know what, life's too short, boxing's far too short. And to have the opportunity to go and, train with Andy alongside Joe, alongside Paddy Donovan, alongside everybody else involved in the stable, it was just too good an opportunity to pass up. And I really feel that, Andy's not a coach, he's a teacher. And he's somebody that I really, really respect. Not as just a boxing coach, but as a man. So I felt that there was a lot that I could learn from him. And the fact, Emmanuel Stewart coached him, Adam Booth, he's been alongside Klitschko. He's obviously coached Joe now at a win against Wilder. He's just a wealth of knowledge. And I just thought, you know what? I've always looked up to this guy even before I boxed. When I played rugby, I was a massive fan of Andy. So it was just too good an opportunity to pass up.
Absolutely. And I think, if you look at, and you seem to be the kind of person that does look at the positives rather than the negatives, and more of a glass half full rather than half empty kind of guy. The time that you have spent out the ring, in the first part of last year, you obviously, like you say, you've been working with Joe Parker, and you would have had sparring sessions with Martin Piccoli, Ajit Kabayel, amongst others. So there has been, and also, sparring and fighting. But in terms of a next best thing, the experience and the experiences that you've picked up over the past 12, 18 months in terms of training and sparring and the people you've been around is really second to none.
No, listen, the three guys you just mentioned, Martin Piccoli, Ajit Kabayel and Joe Parker, all three of them in their last fights got massive victories. Big Martin wiped out Carlos Takam in pretty convincing fashion. I'd done a lot of rounds with Martin before he had that fight. Obviously Ajit wiped out Mahmudov. There was a bit of an upset. Nobody expected that. I kind of, after the first round and having been in training with him, I could see that he was going to get to him. And then obviously Joe, put on, in my opinion, I thought, a masterclass performance against Wilder. A lot of people have kind of said, oh, Wilder's this, Wilder's that, he's short. But the last thing goes your power. And he just never gave him a chance to get his right hand off. So the fact that I've worked with those three guys, and those three guys have then went on to have massive victories, I'm not saying it's anything to do with me personally. but I've been involved in the camps, obviously helped them in their preparation, and that's a confidence boost for myself that, you know, I can be in and mix it with these guys in these circles and help them, you know, be a small part in their victory. So it's a massive confidence boost. Obviously, stuff's not went, you know, the way that I hoped it would in 2023, but that's a little positive in it, that you've been involved in camps with 3 different guys who've all went on to have massive victories, and it's not down to you, but you're a little tiny part in the cog that helped them get there.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, you touched on it there, and I want to go into it in a little bit more depth if we can. December 23rd, the day of reckoning. It come around super fast. I think we had 6 weeks from the official announcement to actual fight night. We had all these different promoters working together with Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn, which seemed completely bizarre if you would have said 6 months ago that we'd see these two on a top table together promoting a show. But there we go. We had it on December 23rd. There was a multitude of stars, of world champions, not all in 50-50 fights, but the fact that we had such the A side of the card was stacked unbelievably. With yourself, Nick, I want to have a look at a few of the heavyweight fights, and we'll start off with the bottom of the card, if you like. We had Filip Hrgović, IBF #1 contender. He went in with Mark Demore, most known in our circles for being blasted out by David Haye back in 2015 or 2016, I think it is.
Yeah.
A one-round demolition job from Filip Hrgović. You really take too much from that, the position that is in. No disrespect to Mark Demore, you know, he's strung together some stoppage victories since the David Haye loss, but for the position that Philip's in, was that a bit of an underwhelming matchup?
I don't think it's an underwhelming matchup. I think it was maybe a wee bit of a mismatch. You know, Hrgović is a world-class fighter. He's obviously got himself into, I think he's mandatory with the IBF.
Next in line.
So yeah, he's you know, he's in a strong position. He's worked hard to get there. I think it was kind of expected, to be honest with you. Maybe not a one-round demolition job, but I think he was expected to get the stoppage win there. So no surprises for me. Can you take much from it? Probably not too much more than we already knew. But listen, good respect to your man Demore. He's getting there, and you know, he's there to be great. But Hrgović got the job done, and that was it.
I think the interesting thing with Matt Demore in the build-up, what I took from him is he was brutally honest. You know, nowadays with some boxers, it's all smoke and mirrors, and they'll talk a good game. But he was quite brutally honest, especially at the final press conference. He was saying, you know, and I'm paraphrasing, but along the words of, you know, I'm not going to outbox this guy. I'm going to go for it for a couple of rounds, and if that doesn't work, then I'm a sitting duck kind of thing. You know, it was a bit refreshing, if you like.
Aye, probably mind games as well, because he's probably, you know, there's no pressure on him, was there? Everybody expected him to get wiped out, so at least if he lets your man know, listen, there's no pressure on me, I'm not expected to win, all the pressure's on you, all I've got to go out there is go and try and upset the apple cart, but didn't quite work out that. But listen, respect him, you know, he's went in there against a world-class fighter and never quite worked out for him, but he will live to fight another day. Thankfully, he's out there. He's safe. He's not got any long-lasting damage, and he can go back to his family and be happy. Get a few quid in the bank, and Hrgović moves on.
Absolutely. Next on the card, we had Ajit Kabayel. We touched on him being you've been part of his camp, sparring with him and whatnot. Went in with Aslan Makhmudov, the third Russian. You know, a lot was made in the build-up that he's genuinely a scary-looking guy, Makhmudov. But as much as he's been wiping out his opponents, those that were studying him and looking into him was, you know, he was a train wreck waiting to happen. He was very slow, very cumbersome, devastating puncher, but that he was there to be beaten. And I don't think many people had Kabayel down as the man to do it, but what a performance from Kabayel, two-time European champion in his own right, undefeated, beat Derek Chisora amongst others. A great win for him, and maybe a springboard into bigger and better opportunities.
No, definitely. Listen, he's actually a really good guy, Ajit. Got on really well with him when I was in camp. Him and his whole team, really friendly, good people. Got some great work in with him. You know, so I was delighted for him. I'm not a massive fan of Makhmudov. He's a bit of a abrasive character and it comes across as very. I'm sure he's not. I'm sure it's just a persona for fight week and all that. But he becomes quite a hard guy to like. So I think there's probably quite a lot of people happy to see Ajit get the win, as I was. But listen, I think boxed well, stuck to his game plan. He's got a good coach. I don't want to pronounce his name because I think it's Sukru. Good coach, real nice guy. They went in there with a game plan. They looked to execute it, and they did. He trained really hard for the fight. He was doing 3.5-minute rounds with 30 seconds rest and sparring, which was tough. And he's a great boxer. So I think, having been in camp with him, having looked at how hard he worked, and then seeing the first couple of rounds, I could see that he was going to wear him down and get to him. Some of the body work was lovely. And like you say, I can't remember who it was that said it, but somebody said in the commentary, he's feared until he's not, if that makes sense. So I think the bubble's kind of burst for Matmudov now. People know how to get in there. But listen, I'm sure he'll come back. He's a big, strong, physical, tough man. I think he suffered a broken hand in the second round. But no, I think Ajit boxed beautifully, done what he had to do, wore him down with the body shots and took him out. So, massive respect to him. Great result. And I think it kicks him on to some massive fights in 2024.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that caught the eye with the performance as well was the body work. It's not really something that you see a lot of. It's not rare, but in the heavyweight division, it's not very often that you see fighters go down to the body shots. It tends to be, the chin, the temple, that kind of area of the body. But to see somebody like Matmudov, who was in fairly good condition, he was ripped apart to the body by Cabayel, and it was really eye-catching.
I think, if you look at Ajit, he's not the biggest heavyweight in the world in terms of height, so it probably suits him to look for the body shots a little bit more than somebody like myself. Do you know what I mean? So, and he's obviously fighting a big, tall man, 6'5" or something, I think your man Matmudov is. So, listen, they went in with a game plan, they executed it, delivered, and I think he's a handful for anybody out there.
Absolutely. Next up on the card, I think this was considered maybe the closest to a 50-50 fight of the heavyweight fights on the card in terms of Daniel Dubois against Jermell Miller. A lot was made of Jermell Miller's placement on this card, given that he's had multiple drug issues outside of the ring, and now that he's been licensed by the Nevada State Commission, that he was allowed to box. But the fight went ahead. There was a lot of trash talking in the build-up. Daniel Dubois, many questions hanging over him after the defeats to Joyce and then Alexander Usyk last time out. It was make or break for Daniel Dubois, and he come through in emphatic fashion in the end. He answered a couple of questions early on and stopped him with 13 seconds to go, 10 seconds to go, something like that in the final round, and a great win for Daniel Dubois.
No, definitely, and I think he was under pressure at some points in the fight. Miller's huge, 330 pounds or something he weighed. I think that's 22 stone. I don't actually know I can't work out the maths, but it's a big man. So he was under pressure at certain points of the fight. He weathered the storm in certain points of the fight, and he came on strong at the end. I think the biggest thing for Dubois would be proving to himself that he can do it. So, listen, like you say, there's all the other issues around Miller with the failed drugs test and stuff like that. But ultimately, he served his ban and everything, and by the rules of the game, if they want to, license him, that's up to them. So, for me, I didn't really have any issue with him fighting on the card, but good to see Dubois getting the victory. I think most of the boxing community was happy for him. And it was a good performance. And you know what? There'd been a lot of trash talk and bad mouthing before it, but both of them, were men at the end. And Miller congratulated them. It was nice to see. And I thought, great performance. Because Miller's not a dafty. Do you know what I mean? He's a tough, strong man. And there was points in the fight I thought he had Dubois hurt and under pressure. So, like I say, he weathered the storm, came through it, and he got a pretty emphatic stoppage victory in the end.
Absolutely. Now, if we used to put you in the shoes of Frank Warren and the team of Daniel Dubois, how would you position him moving forward? He's still young. He's been to the top of the mountain and just fell short against Alexander Usyk. A lot of people had him winning that fight with that contentious body shot in the 5th round. And was it legal? Was it not? We won't go into that here. But he's still got a lot of time on his side, and with the belts being wrapped up with Usyk and Fury and then Hrgovic coming next, there's a lot of time there for Daniel Dubois to continue to build and get more confidence. If you was to pick 2 fights, Nick, off the top of your head, where would you position Daniel Dubois moving into 2024?
But I think he's got to be, trying to fight guys in the top 10. Whether it be the likes of Hrgovic, can't think anybody off the top of my head. Maybe a Zhang, maybe the Joyce rematch.
Would you look at, I was just going to say, a Joyce rematch. Would that make sense now?
Yeah, definitely. I think, Joe Joyce, it's make or break now for him after the 2 Zhang fights. I really like Joe Joyce. And it's funny as well because obviously Joe Joyce beat Joe, and then he goes on to the Zhang fights, and then his career's, it's just funny.
It's a tightrope. It's a tightrope.
And he's a great fighter, and he's listening to a big, strong, powerful wrecking ball, isn't he? I think Zhang was just all wrong for him, to be honest with you. I think that was part of the problem. But I think the Joyce Dubois rematch could be a massive fight. That's a main event in itself. So who knows? I think if you're Frank Warren, it's an easy fight to make. Joe Joyce has probably not really got anywhere else to go. It's a massive opportunity for him to get himself back up in that top 10 if he beats Dubois now. And for Dubois, it's a massive opportunity to right that wrong in his career. So that would probably be my pick if I was Daniel Dubois. If I was in Daniel Dubois' shoes and I'd been beat by Joe Joyce, just come off the back, a massive win with Miller. And if I had the opportunity to right the wrong, that's what I would take. And if I was in Joe Joyce's shoes, it's an opportunity to come in and get yourself back up in that top 10. But what do I know? Do you know what I mean? Most of my predictions are terrible. So, but it's a fight that makes a lot of sense, I think. And it's a fight the fans would want to see as well. I know that I personally would love to see it. So, yeah, I think that would probably be the pick of the bunch.
So, without going off on a tangent, just a quick word on Joe Joyce before we can continue with the day of reckoning. An overused cliche in boxing is timing is everything, whether it be in the ring, whether it be out of the ring with opportunities. You look at somebody like Joe Joyce at his age, and you come off the back of stopping Joe Parker in September of 2022. Great win, and he'd had other big wins, and the mandatory wasn't due for the WBO, and he didn't really get his opportunity at a world title when it was definitely due. And then he takes another dangerous assignment against Zhilei Zhang. That goes wrong. He takes the immediate rematch. It goes wrong again. And now he's on the top of the who needs him club. He's a very difficult fight with not much reward at the minute. He doesn't have that interim WBO title anymore. He doesn't really have a lofty ranking anymore. And like you say, you look at someone like a Daniel, he's got to take a dangerous fight next on it, whether it be Daniel Dubois or somebody else. Joe Joyce has got to take that kind of tough 50-50 fight. There's no time for him to rebuild, and it just goes to show that timing is everything in boxing.
One thing about Joe Joyce is nobody can question his heart. He's never ducked a challenge. He's always fought taking the best fights. So I respect the guy. Do you know what I mean? Like, to be honest with you, I maybe think he was a little bit ill-advised in taking the rematch with Zhang straight away. He should have probably went away, built again, then came back and, looked to avenge the loss or step back up again to that level. But listen, you can't fault the guy. He got beat by the better man on the night. And then when, I want to go in and, meet it head on. So I can't really judge him. Maybe you could judge his advisors or who was guiding him. But listen, he's ultimately the man that makes the calls at the end of the day. And I don't know what conversations went on between him and his advisors. So I can't criticise anybody, to be honest with you. I just give the guy respect for stepping up and always wanting to take the hardest fights at the highest level. I mean, listen, he's an Olympic silver medalist, arguably should have been a gold medalist. So he's a great fighter. But like you say, where he's at now in his career, he really needs to take that 50-50 fight. And for me, the money that would be involved in the Dubois fight would make sense because it's worth it. I'd imagine that would be a sizable purse for both men, and at least whoever the winner is, you're getting well compensated if it's not your night.
Yeah.
So
I think
it's an interesting one.
Yeah, you know what? Moving through 2023, you mentioned about him being a silver medalist. Of course, he lost to Tony Yoka, the Frenchman, who didn't have a great 2023 either. And I thought at one point when they both lost early, Yoka lost to Mike McCauley and Joyce lost to Zhang. And then you kind of thought maybe it makes sense for him to fight now. The loser falls off and the winner is back in the rankings. And then they both move on and Yoka loses to Carlos Takam and then Joe loses to Zhang again. And then recently, Tony Yoka took a third loss on the bounce. So maybe that's not the fight right now, but that for a long time seemed to be a matchup that we wanted in the pro ranks, given the controversy from the Olympics. And it just goes to show that you can have plans in the works, and we'll touch on the end of the Day of Reckoning card in a second. But sometimes you can let things over marinate and it falls apart.
Yeah, I think it's like you say, timing's everything, and hindsight is also a great thing. But it's easy to say after the event. So I don't know. I don't, like you say, I don't think Yoka and Joyce is a fight to be made now. But definitely, if they can get a win, who knows? It's probably dead in the water, to be honest with you, because I don't know where Yoka goes from here. Like you say, I think Joyce needs a big fight where he's 50-50. I don't think him and Yoka would be a 50-50 fight right now. I think Joyce would be the favourite by quite a way in that. Even off the back of the two defeats to Zhang. But Zhang, he's a great fighter. Don't get me wrong, Bakoli's a great fighter and he wiped out Yoka, even though it was a split decision win, was crazy. But, Carlos Takam's a little bit spent. Yeah. He beat him quite convincingly. So, and then the other lad that just beat him's not at the same level as Mark McCauley. So I don't really think it's that's not a fight to make. But like you say, it's all about timing, innit?
Yep.
And who knows? A week's a long time in boxing. So Joe could maybe go and get a win. Yoka could maybe go and get a win. And then it's another fight to make. Who knows? And there's definitely a lot of bad blood there for what happened in the Olympics. I don't think there's any love lost there. So, it's an interesting one for the future if all the stars can align. But who knows? We just get to enjoy and see how it all plays out as boxing fans.
Absolutely, and we do love to go off on a tangent. We'll bring it back around to December 23rd. Your man Joe Parker, former WBO world champion, going in with a former WBC world champion in Deontay Wilder. We bring it up again. We talk about timing and marinating, and in the build up to the fight, Anthony Joshua was fighting Otto Wallin in the main event. And all the talk was about this March 9th date that it had been signed that AJ and Wilder was finally going to fight after 6-7 years of trying to get them in the ring. They was both undefeated reigning world champions. We thought we was going to get a unified world title fight. That never materialized. They both took losses, and we thought, right, this is it now. Get past Wallin, get past Parker. It's easier said than done, and the big fight is on. And Joe Parker, he's on this great run under Andy Lee, wins over Derek Sora twice. He beat Jack Massey. He won last time out against Keane. Obviously, he had that loss in there to Joe Joyce, but he's shown that he's bounced back. And he really done a number on Deontay Wilder. He befuddled him, and I'm one to try and look at what one fighter done right, rather than what the other fighter done wrong. A lot of people was looking at Deontay Wilder the time at the ring. That his mindset's different now. He's not the hunter anymore. He's the hunted. Rusty. That Tyson Fury took his soul. But let's flip it the other way. Let's look at the positives from Joseph Parker. Very disciplined, very aggressive in the build-up. Andy Lee was saying, well, the way to beat Wilder is fight fire with fire. And ultimately, that's what he done. He beat him to the punch. We knew he was a much better boxer. And he really took the game plan away from Deontay Wilder. And it was utterly dominant.
Yeah, listen, I think, it's never been a great secret that Deontay Wilder isn't technically the best boxer. If you look at a lot of his fights in the past, he's been outboxed near enough every round, and then he's just found that one punch knockout. Like, look at Ortiz, that's a perfect example. I don't think he won a round against Ortiz, and then he got to him on the ninth with that big right hand, and that's
in both fights as well. In both fights,
yeah, that's what he's always had. He's always had that one punch knockout power. Look at him against Tyson. He's been completely outboxed in every round, and then he just pulls that one punch, manages to get it on him, and he could have arguably won any of those fights with the one punch. Just Tyson's a different animal, and Wilder saw him and got up and knocked him out twice, and I thought he won the first anyway. But listen, I think people really overlooked Joe. They never really gave him the respect that he deserved as a former world champion, and also the momentum and the run that he was on. The fact he had Andy in his corner, yeah, it was kind of, I felt pretty disrespectful, to be honest with you, talking about the Wilder-Joshua fight before any of them had even fought. But I think that actually played into Joe's hands. It kind of, gave him the desire all through the camp. Never a moment of negativity from him. Always positive, always thinking about what he had to do, not about what was going on around him. And, he's somebody that you could really learn a lot from and take a lot from, and how to deal with adversity. So I think, yeah, like you say, he took away Wilder's game plan, took away his right hand. Everybody's going, he never threw a right hand. Joe never really gave him a chance to. And he just outboxed him, outfought him. I remember, having a chat with Andy about it before the fight, and Andy just went, he can't outfight Joe. He can't outbox Joe. All he can do is land a right hand.
Yep.
And they never allowed him to do that. And that was evident. I think it's a bit unfair as well. Maybe Wilder's not the fighter he was 3 years ago, but he's the last thing that goes your power.
Yep.
And he never allowed him to land that right hand. So I don't really like, it's still like you're still getting disrespected after you put on the performance, his career. He completely outboxed him. But you know what? I had a brief conversation with Joe about it, and Joe says, you know what? Forget all that. We got the win. We done what we needed to do, and we move on. And that's the attitude. It was a great performance, great win. Wilder's former world champion, arguably the most devastating right hand in the history of heavyweight boxing, and Joe took it away from him and got a decisive. He won every round. I think personally that the 2 rounds that Wilder was awarding the other 2 cards could have went either way. So, it was a great performance, great win, and a confidence booster for me as well. Do you know what I mean? So, I was just happy that he managed to get it done.
Absolutely a great win for Joe Parker on a massive platform. It puts him in the window for other big opportunities moving into 2024. I think with Deontay Wilder, maybe he's still got that showmanship, that character that in this era of Riyadh season with these big Saudi shows, that he might still get that big opportunity. Usually you'd sit here and say, where does he go from here? But with that character, that pizzazz that he's got, that maybe an anti-Joshua fight still happens in the back end of 2024. Who knows? Touching on anti-Joshua, we've only got a few minutes left, but we can't not speak on anti-Joshua picking up a fantastic win over Otto Wallin. Some people were saying it's a big, tricky southpaw, slippery customer, that he could be all wrong for anti-Joshua. They questioned Joshua in the build-up, that he was short with the media, that he didn't really say much. But he went in there, and again, he was very destructive, and it led to Otto Wallin quitting on his stool, and anti-Joshua picks up a much-needed big win to move into 2024.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty decisive performance. I was a little bit disappointed with Wallin. I thought he'd offer a little bit more than he did. But listen, I think a great performance for Joshua. Picked him apart. Looked inevitable. Probably a great call from Wallin's corner to pull him out. But yeah, big performance. Obviously, the script had been written up before the fight. That could have played in Joshua's head as well. He's thinking, that's. But fair play to him. He just got in there and done his job. You can't really worry about anything else other than the task at hand, and that's what he done pretty convincingly. And he probably proved a few people wrong with it, how he went out there and the job he done. So a great victory for him. Looked a bit like the old Joshua we used to see back, in the before Corona, before the first Ruiz loss, which was nice. Good to see. It's exciting. So some big fights for him in 2024, like you say, with Saudi and the Riyadh season. Who knows what's possible and what fights they can make, the money they've got there. Like you said, Eddie Hearn and Frank won at the same table. You never thought that would happen, but money doesn't talk; it swears, eh? So yeah. It's anything's possible. I think with the Saudis back in heavyweight boxing, it's an exciting time. Great win for them, and we kick on now to 2024. The first big one's Fury Usyk, and after that, I think we're going to see some exciting matchups.
Absolutely, I can't put it any better myself, Nick. Just before we finish, 2024, it's a new year. Give us your plans, your goals nice and brief, within 30 seconds. Where does Nick Campbell go in 2024?
4 fights, big, and then looking to take a big opportunity. I'm in the right team. I've got the right people around about me, the right people guiding me. I'm just looking to progress, get momentum, and then provide a big upset.
Absolutely, very well said. We look forward to a big 2024 for Nick Campbell, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty of content coming throughout the new year. Make sure you check out Nick on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Check out myself and the SimBoxx channel on the same platforms. And we will catch you on the next one. Nick, thanks for your time.
Pleasure as always, Luke. See you soon, mate.